Okay.
Hey, we're on.
I think we're on.
Good morning.
So
It is still morning, isn't it?
It is. And we got this week and next week in here, right?
Yes.
And then
we'll figure it out because I know they're going to get an internet there too. They have to have internet. If not, we'll just go to church.
Mm-hmm.
We could do that.
We can.
I could just tell Father, oh, there's service at 12. I wouldn't have to go far, would I? We could sit in the parking lot and see. We'll figure it out.
We will get it figured out.
We will figure it out.
All right, so last week we didn't do anything because it was a crazy week, and then you went bison hunting.
Yes, it was a crazy week.
Just a lot going on last week. So we're back to this week.
Yes.
So now we're on to viruses, aren't we?
Viruses. And I brought my college book, The Microbial World. It's probably been updated in 55 years, I'm sure. I'm sure it has. But the history behind it you can still find, and it's right in here. Pasteur was very good in finding bacteria and filters and stuff and retaining bacterials and stuff. I'm reading this right out of this great book. But viruses were discovered in 1892 by a Russian scientist, Iwanovsky, and he was using tobacco. He was actually using infectious extract from tobacco plants infected with Masonic disease, and found to his surprise that the filtrate was fully infectious when applied to healthy plants. What he found out was it's a whole class of microscopic infectious agents, and that led to viruses.
You see, I'm sure some of y'all are sitting out here going like me.
Who cares?
That's a lot of word salad for me. So now we got to break it down.
So we'll break it down.
Because bacteria, that's where we left off, was bacteria is usually you find out that bacteria are not supposed to be contagious, but they can be. We found they can be.
You can,
But viruses are the ones that were contagious, because virus is like a cold and all, right?
The rhinovirus, the common cold.
Mm-hmm.
You sneeze.
Stomach viruses. Yes. And viruses are usually the ones.
Yes. So,
but bacteria we did discover could be shared with other people, depending on what it is.
That's right.
But, so now we're on to viruses, which are definitely spreadable.
They are a different animal altogether.
If you do something and then wipe it on your eye, like if you're doing the grocery cart and then you wipe it, anything that it can get into your body from, right?
Yeah, well, going back a little bit.
Or even air.
They've completely closed down the boarhead plant.
Yes.
In Virginia. Yes. And what I was reading on an article is because they thought that some of these bacteria that got in everything were just hovering around and had formed an endospore, and when, again, get the conditions right. Now, viruses are a little bit different because they don't have the same structure as a bacteria. They are basically a coating, and I've got a picture here of different viruses, okay? They have a coating that is they call it a capsid. It's like a protein coat. That's a little outside coat. And then inside, and it looks like they have inside they have the genetic material that they need. And in some cases it has DNA or RNA. And DNA is deoxyribonucleic, that's the one that has the code, and the RNA either transfers it or gets the protein to make it. So you got that. And what they do is they attack the cell, and some of them look like they have little prongs, and they just hit on that cell and attach in, and the RNA or the DNA for that particular virus replaces the DNA in the cell and starts to replicate itself. So it's replicating its own virus. It's kind of scary. It takes over. And in my book here, that The Microbial World, you have to isolate this virus and cultivate it and see if you can get it back the same thing every time in order to figure out if that's really the virus causing it. And we have the influenza virus, we have the COVID virus, and viruses, Well, they
For
mutate.
viruses, you always treat with an antibiotic or
No,
anything. It's just one of
yeah.
those things that runs its course.
Because you can't really kill the DNA. It's taken over your cell. It's really kind of scary. And this book has a whole list of different things, and
But some of them must have a shorter lifespan, because sometimes it'll be like the 24-hour flu, where it gets you, you're done,
yeah,
and then 24 hours, your body.
says, okay, I've had enough. And, well, look at what happened with COVID. Some people never even thought they had it.
Well, they may or may not have, and and COVID has been
Yeah.
found to be similar to the cold virus,
Yes.
or it is the cold virus.
And it's been around, and it just shows up. So viruses, and again, we have a whole chapter on viruses in this book, and it comes from a specific group of ultra microscopic. And these things can filter passing infectious agents. They can go through filters, some of these. So we get these machines with HEPA filters. You really have to have a very small mesh to keep them. We're talking in the size of a micron, okay, so this.
But viruses, well, I guess especially viruses and stuff, and nowadays, when you're getting into this time of year and stuff, you definitely need to keep your hands washed, don't be putting your stuff
Yes.
near your eye. And that's why kids, I think, get so much, because they're constantly eating something, throwing it down, putting it in their mouth, rubbing their face, sneezing, so
That's how
those,
you get that.
so, they're constant, and that's how kids, I think, catch it, and then it passes along in school, because then they share a pencil, or they're in an environment and stuff.
And it's really hard to
keep it pure.
To keep it,
Mhm.
yes. You could be any place and
Because they don't put, like air filters and different things into classrooms, do they?
no, and I have, now,
Why, I wonder?
I don't know, and this goes along with my brain and how I work. When COVID came around, we talked about ultraviolet lights. And those with ozones, because ozone kills a lot of these microbials, and ultraviolet light disrupts their cellular structure. Because they respond to the ultraviolet light, it does something to it, and I haven't done great research on that, but we have them in our house, and we have the little ultraviolet lights, and you can mount them on a board, and we have it where the air intake goes in from the heat pump. And if we have the furnace on or the heat pump on, we'll turn that on, because as the air goes past, the ultraviolet light is sort of purifying. But you can get the same type of lights built in your air ducts. And in fact, I was thinking about something like that to propose.
You have it in the return?
Yep,
Or
return.
The return is where, because
Yep,
it's
so-
taking the
yep.
air out of your house,
House and
putting
pushing
it,
back,
so
yep.
then you put it in there, the ultraviolet light, so that it kills it, so when it's returning it back through.
Yep, and I'm sure you could put it in the other one that's coming back, and I've been concerned because, churches and schools, like you said, and we had a filter here that was in the corner, but that's now home, and that was a good one. It has a charcoal filter in it, so that takes out odors and everything else, and it was an expensive one. But I was thinking of putting in something, asking the church to buy like an ultraviolet light to put in the kitchen and one on the church, to turn it on at night when you're gone and clear the air before people come in. And if you go, now Sunday's restaurant that we have here that will
That we did, mhm.
Yep. They had a wall-mounted stuff, and that was really nice. They had 3 bulbs, and it hung on the wall right in their restaurant area, the seating area. And some places have them in their kitchen, because it kills that bacteria and the viruses that are hanging around. So they have what's called an eye wave, and the eye wave goes right in near the filter of the furnace to kill these bacteria and viruses as they go through. What a great idea. Schools could do that. Because viruses, there's really very little you can do to stop a virus other than wearing masks, which we did.
But we found that it didn't help.
Didn't help.
I mean, they say that you've got to have a certain, because viruses can be so teeny tiny that it could even get through those masks. So
That is exactly it.
That was already proven that the mask did not. In fact, it was more harmful because then you're
Kept
sitting
it
there.
in. It concentrated it, yeah. Now, a cold, I think the only reason why people would wear a mask, actually, here's how I'd like it. If you've got a cold and you know you've got a cold, wear a mask, a good one. You know, keep that in. Don't spread it. And I remember years ago, the whole big thing, because those are viruses, when you sneeze and when you cough, you should really do it.
Elbow.
Yeah, elbow. You know, do it here.
No, move your hand, because then you shake hands.
Exactly, and then you got hand stuff all
And
over.
see, and I'm not big this time of year for shaking hands at church.
I'm not big at shaking hands much.
I mean, church, you're supposed to welcome people and all, and I'm like, hello.
Yeah,
Because I really
and then you
don't
do a
like,
fist bump, you know.
I mean, I'm just
Or
not.
elbow. I mean, the kids like to do elbows.
And see, and I like to wear gloves, or I like to get the plastic
see-
bags at the grocery store and put on my cart during this time of year.
Now, here's the thing that's kind of interesting. I don't know about you, but when I was a little girl and went to church, we got all dressed up with the white gloves and the cotton gloves, and you'd wear them.
We did at Easter, not the rest of the
I
time.
think we did it at Easter, but I always loved wearing them, so I wouldn't be surprised if I wore them. But in the wintertime, if you're in the Northeast, you wear gloves anyway. So, maybe we should go back to some of that etiquette again and have gloves.
Mm-hmm.
Surgical gloves, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, they look like a crystal structure, and they have different shapes. And I remember doing that shape, that we talked about that shape, and it doesn't look like some kind of alien from outer space.
Well, and these look like, to me, so to me, they're going out with their little coat on. But then underneath is these little suctions that look like suction cups to me that stick to everything.
That's exactly it. And then,
And then once you start doing that, then it's like, to me, osmosis.
yeah, it just
It
diffuses in.
just starts diffusing in, yes.
Yep, and then, and there's some scary ones. There's some scary, the hemophages, or the hemophagic viruses like Ebola. Those are scary. Those are scary, scary. And at any given time, there's outbreaks of Ebola. And there's a cool book, if you want to read, what was it? I got to look up that title, because I read the book. And they were studying the Ebola, because there was one form of Ebola that had an outbreak in Germany. Let's start with M, and I cannot for the life of me get that right name. But it was a form of Ebola. And they took, and they had, in Western Virginia, they had a building that they had these monkeys in. And they were doing research on that form of Ebola. And now here's the idea. They were contained in a room, but it got out. And some people got infected. Now, not all people die from it, and this one was not the really bad one, but it was still bad enough that there's concern, because it is not a pleasant disease. These viruses, I mean, and you get bleeding from everything, because it's breaking down all your cells and all your organs, and what happens, what's in all those organs and cells? Blood. And your eyes start to run blood, everything starts to run blood, because you're being literally eaten from the inside out by these viruses. Well, what happened in Western Virginia is it got out, and the only thing they could think of was that it got in the air system and got through. Now, what happened to that building? They completely shut it up. They gassed it, they chlorinated, and it was sealed off. It was sealed off because they couldn't take a chance that those viruses were someplace in that building. I read the book. It was a fascinating book. Again, I have to look it up about Ebola and Reston, Virginia, but that was right here in Virginia, and they were studying that, and that's scary. If you start reading, and that's a virus, and we're not talking about just, we got lots of virus, with dengue fever and all these other things that we find, and they're dangerous because you have to isolate the virus to make sure you have it. And then they have to try to find a way of helping you so you don't die from it. I mean, influenza, we're very lucky because that's a virus, but they have actually grown that virus and found that the virus can grow on something. Am I plugged in? I'm not plugged in, so I'm just going by yours. I bet you I'm talking on yours. But I have a big mouth, so it doesn't matter. They probably hear me. Okay, anyway, if you didn't hear me, that's all right. We can.
You're not on now.
I'm not.
She did not want to communicate today.
Yes, but I'm just reading in on hers.
Mine should be picking
hers
up.
should pick it up. But I
We're
was
in a
talking about
smaller
Reston,
room.
Virginia, and Ebola, and all these other viruses, and it's scary. And in order to get different vaccines for these, and we know every year we have to have a new flu shot because it mutates. It changes. It says, oh, so you have something that's killing me, I'm going to change.
But usually it's from the last year, so you're already behind.
That's right.
That's one reason I don't take them.
So,
I don't get them. I mean,
and sometimes you still catch it, because it's from the last year. You're right. Because they've taken the last year's influenza and they've grown it on something else to make it happy with whatever they're living on. So when it gets into a human or whatever they give you, it's like, oh, I'm not used to this food. And your body builds up an immunity before it has a chance to really hurt you.
and then when the flu comes out, it's like, it's a different meal altogether, and it's like, okay. But,
Well-
I mean, my doctor and I had this conversation one time, and he was like, well, Karen, you need it. And I'm like, no, I don't. I said, you're giving me something based on the statistics and what you have from last year. I said, you don't have this year's virus yet. This year's not out yet. How can you give me a shot on something that you don't even have out?
Well, see, I love that. I love her.
But anyway, so, and I was like, so no. And,
Well-
but and you have to me, it's what you choose to do and how you feel like.
It's your right to have that decision. And I mean, the doctor said to me, oh, you didn't have this, and I said, I've had everything. So, but as we're talking about this, and going along with what you said, I had every one of those COVID shots. So we're sort of like a control and the test, because I had every one of those COVID shots.
And I did not.
All right? And
I got COVID once
I had all my
that
food.
we knew of, and you wouldn't even have known then I had it. If my husband had not have tested positive,
Then you wouldn't have.
and his actually looked like the flu, not the stomach virus flu, I'm talking the flu.
Yes.
His looked like he might have had the flu. But me, you'd have never even known I had it. And so the only reason you knew is because I had to test.
So I had the flu shot, and I usually get them late, so it'll hold me over into February. So here we are. I could be your test sample because I had all the shots, every single shot. I'm up to date on every vaccine that I can possibly have.
And you had COVID, right?
Yeah, so January 1st, got sick. Not only did I have COVID, I had the flu at the same time. So there we go. What have we learned from this lesson?
You roll the dice, right?
And I was really sick.
Yeah, you were.
I was really sick.
Yeah, she was really
And
sick
I'm
with
like,
everything.
this is not fun. Because when they said we have bad news, I'm like, how much worse can it be? You've got both, the flu and COVID. So yes, folks, there it is. So my immunity against these two things didn't matter how many shots I had.
But
I
you
still had
still
it.
do it at your age for precaution.
Yes, because I don't want that extra secondary infection. I did pop back once, like after 4 days, 5 days, I was pretty good. It wasn't bad. But for a couple days, I thought
It's those,
death
it's
warmed
those
over.
initial days that you feel like.
Yeah, it was the headache, and I was on, imagine this old lady, I love hoodies. I get up in the morning, I put a hoodie on. And it's a great invention in the whole world, a hoodie. So I put a hoodie on, and I felt so bad. I'm laying on the sofa, 2 pillows under my head, and a blanket over the top of my head, right? So I just looked like this, this sausage roll with a blanket on the bed, on the sofa, because I didn't want to move. And Tylenol and aspirin happened to be the only thing. So no, it wasn't pleasant. So even having the shot, because they would say, if you have the shot, you may not have the symptoms quite as bad. No, I had them all. Thank you.
And you were pretty bad.
I was sick, and my husband had it too. Not quite as bad, but he had both. We were both sick at the same time.
And it's not fun, but and so we choose differently. I just feel like, and there's nothing wrong with it. You choose for what you feel like you need to do.
That's right, and that's why we get along so well. We do think alike, but we still have our own path.
Exactly, we're independent.
We're independent, we have our own path, and sometimes I'll say, oh yeah, I agree with that. That's a really good point you brought up, because we have courtesy for each other's thoughts.
Yeah,
And
it's
we
okay
know,
to disagree.
Exactly.
Or not to, yeah.
But you bring it, and that's a scientist, so you're a scientist too. Because you take the facts in, and you're like, why should I have this?
But then it comes down to, this is your personal choice.
Is exactly it, and that's why we don't have to have people tell us what to do at our age, or. So, and see where viruses got us. But it's true. When it comes to a virus, you can't predict really who's going to have it. And one of the things they do ask you when you go to the doctors now is, have you been out of the country?
Mm-hmm. Have you been around anybody that has, or have you been around anybody?
Yeah, and because you got monkeypox that's all over, and I think there's even a flare-up of smallpox every now and then, because you don't know where these people are coming from. You have, and it's a dangerous
Like,
world.
no, we're just living in our own country now with everybody flooding the border.
Exactly. Well,
We've not left our country, but the
they're
country
coming to
has.
us. Yes, their countries have come to ours. So-
Exactly, and they're not getting checked. So, what do you do with that? What do you do with that?
Because they're coming from all over, and all over that they're coming from our country. And these people are people who want to leave their country, and they probably want to leave it because they are not ones that have enough money to do a lot of things, or
And they're coming to a country that don't have a lot of money to do a lot of things.
You're just coming to us, and we don't have a lot of money either. We're
Not
ecstatic.
thinking this one out. How's that working for you?
You
No.
guys didn't work it out. But along with them comes the baggage of viruses and bacteria, and that's why we're finding a lot of these things.
But it reminds me of, like, if you ever watch one of those movies where they are trying to control a virus, and then all of a sudden they show, and how just rapidly, because this person goes over here or flies here, and this one, and all of a sudden, you don't realize in your own little world how many people you can infect in a day.
That was the thing, is I remember when Ebola was a big, and they don't talk about it because it is very scary, because you don't know you really have it. And you could be in a plane, and it is very
But by the time it
infectious.
catches up,
Yeah, it
you're
could be
dead.
throughout the world. Sometimes I guess I like to torture myself because I read about these things, and sometimes knowledge can make you like, oh man, do I even want to go out? And I'll carry my bottle of Clorox with me and just spray everything, or alcohol. But that was an HIV when that came out. And we literally, at our school, had a container of 10% Clorox solution. That if a kid, and we don't know what the kids have, if they vomited, we sprayed that with 10% Clorox solution. And I remember when COVID came around, I have a bottle over there with a 10% Clorox solution that I would spray the chairs and stuff after everyone left.
10% enough?
Supposedly.
See, I kind of have monk syndrome sometimes, so I'd be wanting it like 90% Clorox, 10% water.
See, that's sort of like alcohol. When you buy alcohol in the bottles now, it's a 70%. And I always learned it's got to be a little bit higher than 70%. So if you can find the 90 and you can find a 70 and mixed it together and you got an 80. So to me, that's a good one, right? Either that, or here's the other thing. You get somebody who likes to make moonshine,
Oh, yeah, that'll kill anything.
and you distill it 2 or 3 times, and all you have is the pure alcohol, and that is great to have.
Yeah,
That is great to have, because it's
Just
almost
don't
like,
light a match near it.
don't light a match near it. Mm-mm. And I'll tell you, because that stuff burns, and but
it should clean.
It's
it should-
worth having. And you ever watch the old westerns when they had to dig out a bullet? What do they pour on it? Whiskey. They give them a swig to drink so they don't feel any pain, and then they pour it on the wound.
Which I know our time is winding down, but thinking of that, think about it. One swig of whiskey is not going to take effect in your body that quickly. And
No,
then
you
all of a
have to-
sudden they're like, here, take a sip. This will help. And I'm like, not that quickly.
And then they bite the bullet. So here's the bullet. So when the pain hurts you, you bite that bullet. So that, we just went to the westerns. But really, I mean, that's what they did. They did, and sometimes they cauterized it, because if there's a lot of alcohol in that and you want to stop the bleeding, go, and they
Put the
burn it.
gunpowder.
Yeah.
Sometimes they put the
Yeah.
gunpowder. They put that directly into it. But it's just, that's interesting.
That's
So-
painful just to think about it. But, hey. We made, all these little things that we know about now are worth knowing about. And as I cut up 20 pounds of bison liver. You like liver? Oh,
Is it really good, bison liver?
it smells great when I'm cutting it.
I do like liver. Not everybody
We've
likes
got
liver.
about 20 packages of it. And I said to my husband, we'll never have to buy a package of liver again, because it's not something you eat all the time.
No, and that's
Like
not
maybe
something you
once a
say
year.
to somebody either very often.
So
We'll
it's
never buy liver again.
I mean, I figure I got 20 years of liver sitting. So let's say 20, that means I'll be 97. So there you go.
I don't think it lasts in the freezer that long.
Probably not, but they're all packed up. I've vacuum sealed them all. They're all. So,
All right, well, there
That
we
was
go.
fun.
That was viruses.
yes.
And I know she's got some more to enlighten us on next
I hope
week.
we go viral. We're trying.
Bing, bing. All right, talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.